So this prototype is mostly made up of nested components. Content like the author's name, the description, the augmented chip that animates horizontally, and all of the videos are customizable. Each video automatically plays and pauses based on where they are located in the scroll offset.
Coming in, I've got a lot. And let's go. Coming in, I've got. And let's go.
But I don't want any trouble in here.
And let's go.
And you can see that when I scroll between two videos, for example, how at a certain threshold they oscillate between pausing and playing, just like the real app does. We're also going to be able to pause and play videos with a single tap. And what's cool about Reels is you can single tap on a video to do one thing, which I just mentioned is pause and play. But if you double tap, you can achieve another result, which is to display the thumbs up animation to like the video. This logic works in conjunction with the smaller like button on the UFI bar. Another feature is the progress bar. This is built to animate based on the video's duration. So there's no set animation duration. So if a video is 30 seconds, then the progress bar would take longer to get from one side to the other side of the device than if a video was 12 seconds. And lastly, the comments bottom sheets are all just one component that you can customize to look like the user's feedback or responding to a particular video that we're tapping on the comment button to see. Okie dokie, let's get started with a components overview next. All right, everything is running through the main scene in ProtoPie. So all of these components here, which you can expand this drawer to see components. You can also change up the view if you would like, but I leave it at thumbnails as such. So all of these are in the main scene being put together in some form or fashion on this root level. But to dive deeper into the components, I have a video component that is basically driving all of the other components. And the other components are what I would call nested components inside of this video one. So I have the Reels UI, so I'll double click on that. There's a lot of functionality in this, but it has to be driven by the video component. We also have this play and pause icon button that animates in and out, again, driven by this video component. So this is the parent. We have comments. Comments is a little different. I needed to put it, let me pause that. I needed to put it on the top layer because I need these comments to go on top of the tab bar. So when I touch here,
New toys!
Welcome
you can
to
see
Sunnyside, folks. Donated was the best thing that ever happened to you.
you can see how those comments went on top of everything. I needed that to be the case, so I found it easiest to do since this Reels UI bar, this Reels UI section up here and this tab bar are actually on the main scene. I found it easier to have the comments on the main scene. But again, the video component is driving communication to this component that's on the main scene. The last thing is simply the augmented chip. This is just a standalone component that is nested, but there's no functionality to it. It just plays automatically. So you can see that it just animates slowly. So that's it. Everything, that's how this prototype works. And we're going to now start creating components and just putting it all together. Okay, so here is the starter file. You can always do save as. I am saving mine locally. I just want to do this quickly, and I feel like saving to the desktop is fast, so I always save locally. And the first thing I want you to do is get rid of this white background. When you have nothing selected and you're selected on you're on the pasteboard essentially, or the canvas, you can change the background to whatever color you like. I'm just going to go with the color that I have chosen for the background, which is probably, okay, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, so I provided you with a bunch of layers. I have the home notch, I have a white and a black one, I have this hairline guide that will never show the user, but we're going to use it when we, as a helping guide on the y-axis of how we can set up the ranges for shutting off and turning on videos when we're scrolling. I did provide some top UI, which is just text here using the Facebook font, and I have a few icons here. And I have the scrim. The scrim is literally, it's just a layer that's the size of the device, and I have it at 0 opacity. So when we tap on comments, that'll be presented behind the comments. Let me shut off this guide. I have the tab bar here. It's just a screen grab from the, I think it's a screen grab from the production app, or maybe I exported it a while back from Figma. And then I do have this musical note that we're going to use for the augmented ship. I brought that in from Figma as well. It has that icon fill and then the bitmap mask. Okay, so let's change this to call it main. I just double click on it, call it main. By the way, if you ever want to change the iPhone's device size or go to Android, desktop, or custom, the device selection is right up here. Please do this tutorial as an iPhone 14 Pro because that's what all the dimensions are, and I'm using that size because that's what I have as a work phone and a personal phone, so I can always preview in there. All right, I think that's it. Oh, you shouldn't have this. Let me delete that. All right, the last thing we're going to do on the main scene is add the system status bar. Just be sure that you have nothing selected and check here. And if you don't see anything, sometimes it is at 0 fill, so just be sure that you have your contents at 100% fill, and I have it on white. You'll see 941 on the canvas, but on the preview it does pull in, and if you're looking at it in a phone, it will pull in the real time. All right, let's build our first component, and that's going to be the pause and play component. So I'm going to open up the components drawer. You can just tab here. I use this to save some room when I'm on the scenes, but when I'm in components, I do leave this open. And the first thing we're going to do is add a new component, and that's going to be done with the plus button. I always change the background to these, either this color or this color, and it should be in your starter file, but I always tend to go with the lighter teal, and if it's just a very white UI and I need to see things, I go with the darker one. All right, so we're going to do that, that little circle that looks like this. So we're going to have a container that is 100 pixels by 100 pixels, and we're going to have two icons, a play icon and a pause icon and a base. And let's start recreating that. So it is 100 pixels by 100 pixels. I want to be sure that it's centered up in, on the origin, and I'm going to center it on the canvas. And I'm going to then draw the base, which was an oval. So I'm just drawing a circle. I'm changing it to center. Let me get the value from my document. Fill color too. Just so you know, I am toggling between a bunch of documents to try and remember what I did or how I did it. So I am going to do a lot of pasting in final interactions, and I'll recreate it for you in real time and then delete it. But I need to do that because it is such a large file and there was a lot to remember. So I am making this base the same size, and I'm going to center it in the container so it'll be at 50 pixels by 50 pixels. And let's make that that little triangle. So it's a polygon. I'm going to draw a polygon in here. I believe that the size was 38 by 33. 38 pixels by 33. You'll need to have the aspect ratio lock disabled. I'm going to center it. I'm going to make sure that it's at full white. And I'm going to turn this on 90 points. And by the way, you can change shapes here. Let me zoom in a little bit. Obviously a triangle has 3 sides, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to center it up. Visually, I just put it over 1 pixel, so it is at 49 by 50, and I'm going to call it IC play. And I'm going to put it at 0 opacity because I don't want to see it. We don't want a play button icon to be seen in a prototype when you're not actually interacting with this. So I hit it with the opacity. Okay, the next thing I want to do is draw the pause icon. And the pause icon is, I'm going to rename this base. The pause icon is 2 rectangles, and they are, oops, let me do that again. I think there's a weird bug, and it's annoying as heck, but it happens in components. Drawing shapes is really annoying, and it doesn't work well, but sometimes you could just do what I did, is just hit R and then tap it, and you'll get a big square. Then you can size it the way you want. Okay, 8 by 32 is the size. 8 by 32. I want it to be white. I'm going to call this one, I just press Command R, and I'm going to call it left, and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to tap it over to be 10. And I use the Option key to get this measurement thing. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to call this right. And then I'm going to select both of these and Command G, and I get a container that fits this exact. I'm going to center it up. I'm going to put it in the middle of this circle, so it actually is 34th. Okay, it's dead center. And I'm going to call this IC pause. Please use the exact names that I'm giving, because I'm going to be referencing these a lot of layers, and I need you to call it exactly the way I am, so your prototype will work the way mine does. Okay, so the next thing is we want to do something called a start animation. So right now, I have something that looks like this. So if I actually dragged this component onto the main scene, I would see that icon. And I don't want to see the pause and play icon. So we have to do 2 things. We have to, 1, make it opacity. We have to make the opacity 0, but we also want to scale it down, because if you remember, I'm going to go back to this. Go back here. It animates up. Did you see how it animates up? It animates down.
New toys!
And you can go down here and go to something like 0.5. And you can see it slowly animate up and slowly animate away. So I'm going to scale it down to 20% and give it 0 opacity. I am sorry about all the sirens outside of my house. I can't do anything about it, so I'll carry on. Okay, so we're going to use something called a start trigger. This means that at the start of the prototype, we want to run a few instructions. And the first one is I want to make the opacity of the whole component to be 0. So I'll do opacity, and I'll type in component opacity 0%. And by the way, I have still at component 1, I want to call this something very specific. So I'm going to call it pause plus play. Be sure to name it exactly the way I'm doing it. And so now I have to be sure it's all set up, and then I have to do opacity to 0. So I need to move this just to make sure that it captures the 0. I don't want to animate this. I don't want to set any duration, so please make it 0. The next thing we're going to do is add a scale. The whole thing needs to be scaled to 20%. So what I did here is I did factor. Factor means percentage to ProtoPie, and I put it at 20%, 20%, and a duration of 0. So right now, I'm not going to see anything if I look at the preview app. Let me do that. That's screen flow. So I'll see nothing, but if I actually want to see that I'm doing the percentage down, I could shut off. You can shut off things by hitting on this little toggle. And I can see that I made this all the way down to 20%. So if I toggle here, I can see things deactivated, like interactions and responses deactivated. So let's say I have this whole thing and I want to, like, I'm doing some testing, I can actually deactivate this entire thing. So I can deactivate stuff while I test new ways of doing something. I could always try different stuff, deactivate so I don't see it in the prototype, and if I choose, I can always throw stuff away. So it's a great way to iterate on designs. But I do want to see that, so I'm going to set it back there. Now I'm going to go to the final document, and I mentioned this before, but I'm going to paste in a lot of triggers and responses because there are so many values that I need to be able to recreate it in front of you in real time. By the way, I want this to happen immediately, so I need this to happen not after the jump. The jump is the start of something. I need it to be with the jump, and I need it to restart every time. Okay. Let me go. I'll shut this off. I'm going to pull this back out. Okay. Let me go into Reels and explain what's going on. So when I single tap on that video, I am actually, detect single tap, I am actually sending messages. And this is, again, an intermediate to advanced tutorial, but we're using messages. So we're actually sending messages, and we're going to build all of this. We're sending messages from this layer to this component. And so what we're doing is we're setting things up to receive two messages. This guy is actually receiving a message called pause, and that message is coming out of this component, as well as played. And so this is if a user taps to pause something, that they just paused on something, that ProtoPie will run these interactions or these animations. And if it receives, if a video is actually paused and a user taps to play, then it'll run these instructions. So let's copy this. And I'm going to do something that's that you may want to use in your workflows. I'm going to write myself a note. I'm going to use something like the focus trigger. And I'm going to say, note, everything below is for reference. I am not doing anything with this other than just using it as a note to myself. And so you can always do this as well. I think ProtoPie might want to consider having comment notes in their interaction panel, but that's something that we could always suggest to them. So I'm going to paste the thing from the other document. And this is all messed up because it's not really connected to, it needs to be hooked up to these layers. But we're going to recreate this now. So the first thing is, again, I'm going to recreate this, is that we're going to receive a message called pause from that video layer, and we're going to scale the component up. Remember, we scaled it down to 20%. We're going to then bring it up to 100%, which is what we're seeing here. We're going to bring up the opacity, and we're going to bring up the opacity, to be sure, we're going to bring up the opacity of the pause button. And then we're going to wait a duration of 0.6 seconds, and then we're going to run these guys down. So we're going to scale it back down. We're going to scale that the pause icon down. Sorry, the opacity and then the pause icon down. I'm not sure why we need to do that 2 times, but let's just do it. Okay. I'm going to add a trigger, and it is receive. We need to receive a message. And what's the message that we want to receive? We want to receive the message pause. So receive, and I put it in quote marks. You could do anything you want. You can put it in brackets, but paused. And I'm using all caps. And I want to receive it from the parent. Remember, this guy is living inside of the video layer, so we're receiving it from the parent. So select parent, that's the channel, and paused is the, I think that came in because of this trigger. Sorry, you would have to actually type that out, paused. And now let's add the responses. So component scale up, we want to do scale, we want to do opacity, and then we want to do opacity on the I can actually duplicate this, Command D, and do opacity on the icon. So opacity, IC pause, opacity up. And I'm going to select that. You can just double click or Command R. Component, opacity up. Okay. And then component, I'm just labeling things first. Component, scale up. Okay, let's select the layers. Component, we want to do pause and play. We want to do a factor. We want to scale it, just punched it in, scale to 100%. What was 0.3? So we use it at a duration of 0.3. And I'd like to use ease out. So I tap here and I go ease out, and then that's it. Okay. Component opacity up. So again, the component, let's put it up to 100%. And we're probably going to use the same duration here. Let me guess. Yes. And we want to definitely use the same easing curves. And then the opacity up for the pause, we'll go to 100 and ease out. Okay, so we're going to then do the reverse of all this. We're going to reset it essentially, but I'm going to wait 0.6 seconds. So you can actually copy all of this if it helps. And you could, if you're inclined, you could do another, again, I use focus, and just make a note below is resetting. So you can write a note to yourself. This is not actually doing anything. You're not connecting it to anything. So you're just using it as a note, but you can do that to break things up. You can even get emojis if you want. Do anything you want to do, but I don't really need it. So let's just go ahead and reverse all of this. Scale down, opacity down. I'll be consistent and use lowercase. So what I'm doing is I'm dropping everything opposite. Let me just put I'm putting a 0.6 duration on all of this, just like this original has. And now let me put the values in. Scale down back to 20%. Remember, that's what we want. Opacity goes to 0. And it's good when you copy and paste stuff because all of your targets are set up, and then you just have to change one thing, and that's it. So I've recreated that. And now let's do another trigger for play. Now I can redo it all, but another quick way is just to you can select this and paste it and just relabel stuff. And then again, just change values. Played. And then we're going to have to type in played. And all of this is the same, but now the difference is we're changing the icon to the play icon. And be sure to change it here. And be sure to change it there. I see. All right, so we set up our first component. And I'm going to delete that. So everything is, let me copy it to the pasteboard. So we did our first component, and then we can move on to the next one. The next component, which will be the augmented ship, add one using the plus sign. Let's change the background. Let's make it the darker color. Okay, we'll call it augmented ship. Augmented ship, just like I'm doing. And then we're going to start setting up the file. And believe me, it's going to be fun. All right. All right, so the container is 192 by 32. So 192 by 32. And let me just center this up. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is think I deleted it by accident, but let me get the musical note. And that is the musical note that for you will be on the main scene, but I needed to get mine from a final file. So just put that at, it seems like it's at 11x by 10. Okay, so it's nesting right here towards the end. Now we're going to add another container, and this is going to be where the feed of the image, that chip is. And I did something pretty simple. What I did is in Figma, I made these gigantic, I think they're almost like, they're like 3,900 pixels wide. The idea is that these things just animate super slowly across, and that's it, and it restarts one time. I'll show you what it looks like in ProtoPie. On the final file, if you go into the augmented chip, you'll see that it's just slowly, I eyeballed it, but it's going slowly across. It's so slow and it's so long, and I duplicated it 2 times. I said move 1, and then I did a reset, move again. That at a duration of 300 seconds each, I think that's like 10 minutes. So I don't think somebody's going to use the prototype for so long, and most likely you're going to restart it a lot of times. So this was just like a smoke and mirrors hack that I came up with, because I'm sure it'd be difficult to do it a real way. So let's put it together. We need another container. So I press the N for new, drag, and we want this new container to be, I'm looking at my notes, 162 by 32. Sorry, 164 by 32. We're going to give it, I'm going to give it a color so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to put a little bit, but I will make it 0 fill. But let's anchor it to the right and anchor it to the top. Great. And let me make some more real estate here. Okay, and we're going to call this feed, and we're going to give it a radius of 100. And when we start putting stuff in, it'll clip as well. So let's get the images that we need. We need 2 images. We need this little guy, this mask augmented chip. So this happens to be the size we need. Let me just change it to 152 by 32. So I uncheck the box to unlock the aspect ratio. I'm just forcing it to be 152. Then I'm dragging it into feed, and I am centering it inside the container. Now on feed, just be sure to clip. There we go. And the next thing that we're going to need is the actual placeholder, that one of these things. I actually made one that just says, it's really tiny. I'm going to drag it on the canvas. And you can't see it because I clipped the container, I dragged it. But if we move it outside, is this clip too? No. I am now talking to myself. Mask augmented. Oh, I dragged the wrong thing. Okay. So we're going to call this, just get rid of the 0. Let's just call it image label chip. Now, when we update, when we actually update content, we'll, all we're going to do is target this in the image, and we're going to change this guy into something else. That's all we're going to do. So I want this to be 32 points high, and it's going to come out to be 3,920. I just want an even number. I'm just going to get rid of that. Okay. And now let's drag that back into feed. And I'm centering it up, and I know it's at 10 on the start. Okay, great. And the next thing we're going to do is make this a mask. Awesome. Okay. Let me just look at my notes to see what's next, or I can actually go to the feed. I'm going to the my original document. Okay, it is at 10. It's inside, and the mask. Okay. All right. So let's put this back to 0. And this mask should be no fill. We don't want to see the black background. So it should be at 100% with no black background. You can either uncheck it or put it to 0. It's up to you. Okay. Next up is let's add the background blur. So the background blur is the same size as this augmented component. We have to make it a different layer, and I can't put it in the container with any rounded corners because there's a bug that I've reported. They're looking into it, but it disables the blur. It's really nuts. So I have to have its own, as it can't be inside of something that has corner radius. So I call it background blur, and I'm using ultra thin material, and it's at 100. Okay. I am ultra. So on the blur effects, you go to this drop down, and I'm going to dark, ultra thin material dark. I'm giving it 100 pixels on the radius. I guess I didn't do enough. I can do 1,000. I don't know. Okay, 192 by 32. Let's go 0, 0, 192 by 32. And get rid of that one. Awesome. And now let's start adding up our, let's start putting in our animation. And we're going to use the start trigger to do that because we just want it to start automatically. So what do we do here? So I got to move, okay. So this is what we did, and I'm going to recreate it. So I do start with jump. Okay, great. So let's do this. Start with jump, reset every time. I do a move, and I'm moving it at 300. Okay. So when it starts, I'm adding the response move. I am selecting the image label chip, and I am moving it to negative 3,590. So that is a long, long while. So this chip needs to basically go in this direction to 3,090. I need to add a negative, sorry. I need to be sure that it says negative here. Great, move 2. And I want to do this at a duration of 300 seconds. And I want this to be linear. There's no easing or anything. It's just a flat out, just animation. All right. And the next one is a reset. So when it gets to 300 and 0.5, right after, I want to do an instant reset. So I'm going to go to 0 on duration. I don't want to see any reset. It's just going to happen automatically. So I'm going to call this move 1, and then I'm going to add a reset response. And I'm going to say reset 1. You can even call this move. I was going to call it something else, but never mind. I'll stick with what I already have. Reset, I want it to be instant. So it doesn't matter if it's instant, it doesn't matter what ease and curve you have. And we want to do a start delay of, we use 300 seconds. So let's do 300.5 seconds restart. Now all you got to do is copy these two, relabel them. This will move, and so at, what did I say? At 301. So at 301, So it resets at 300 seconds and 300.5 seconds. So at 301 seconds, there's a delay, and then it's going to start animating this. And then reset 2 is at 601.5. If you feel comfortable, like you want to add another, move 3 and reset 3, go to, have at it. But I am just resetting it just so it looks like it's going to start over. You technically don't even need this. Resetting is not doing anything here. Okay, so I'm going to delete that, and let's see if it works, because there is the start trigger is going to be running, and we can see what it looks like in the component preview. So that's it. So it starts immediately. Okay, and does it look like the original? Let's see. All right, looks good. If you ever want to tweak anything, like put the musical note a little more to the right, maybe that's better. I'm sure I skewed the mask a little bit. This is all stuff you can play with on your own, with your own assets. Yeah, that's how I did it. Let's move on to the next component. All right, let me just turn this back to the lighter, just so it matches things. The next thing I want to go over with you is the Reels UI. And I did let me just jump to my notes. With the Reels UI, I did, to speed up the tutorial, I did provide this component, Reels UI, without the interactions. And if you feel compelled, you can go through the layers and see how they're arranged. But I did this to save time, because this tutorial is going to be longer than most tutorials, and I just didn't want to get into all of the things that you should be able to do as an intermediate user, or at least beginner to immediate, where you know how to position stuff and then add text, or at least export from Figma. All right, so you might notice that a couple things to point out. You might notice that the height of the components container is 774 pixels high. This is because we need to account for the 78 pixels of real estate that the apps tab bar will take when on the main scene. So you can see here, let me select it. I have it on lock. This is 78, and that's why I made this, because we're going to use the pagination to swipe through. That's why I made this a less vertically high container. All right, so the first thing is we want to pull the augmented chip we just made and pull that in, put it into the canvas. So drag it, plop it there. I even put a little, looks like a little spot chip position here, so we can drag this all the way down. Augmented chip. You can select both of these, left align, bottom align. Let's delete that, and now we're all set. I also wanted you to see that I have these guys all set up. This is animated down already, so we're going to scale this up in animation, but I have the large Lottie and then I have a smaller one. It's the same file, but I just made them different sizes. We don't want to see them, so let's put them to 0 opacity. The next one is inside the vertical UFI buttons bar. It's under like, and there it is, the Lottie animation, and we're going to crank it down to 0. And let's close these up. Okay. Okay, so let me go back to my notes. Okay, so before we jump into setting up functionality, I want to take a second to outline a few things that we're going to accomplish. There are 3 things. We need to make the little thumb Lottie, we need to make that little guy work, and we're going to use a variable to record whether that is in view, if it's on, or if it's off. And this is a really important exercise, not exercise, but an important thing that you can do for a lot of stuff, is off is 0 and 1 is on. That is how I do it. It doesn't mean that you have to do it. But we're going to do the same model when we do video. Pause will be 0, and when a video is playing, I will use the number 1. And we're going to We're going to do that. Let me get rid of those little guys there. We're going to do that in this lesson. Okay. So the other stuff is, the next step is, the next step is we'll make the larger Lottie animation work, and we'll have this function along with the little animation so they can fire off together if needed. So you'll see what I'm talking about, but if that little guy is off and I double tap, then this little thumbs up will animate in. All right. The last thing is we'll create a simple way to give this component a unique identification so that we can have the comment component be specific to each video in the feed. Okay, so what's going to happen is, I am back in the final file, and I want to just show you what's going to happen. It's a little hard when I don't visualize something to somebody. We are going to stack all of these final components, these videos. We're going to put them 1, 2, 3, 4. So it will literally be, I have all these comments on, if I hide them, we have them all stacked together. We have the first one, Toy Story, Star Wars, we have BTS, and then the movie Zootopia. We have them stacked. And let me put these back on. Show layer. And let me go to this first one. So each one has a Reels UI inside of it. It's this Reels UI that we're working on right now. And when I tap on the component, I need that component to this this Toy Story movie. We're going to call it number 1. And I want it to activate comments number 1. And on the second Star Wars, I have Reels UI component labeled ID number 2. And then that'll target this component, comments 2. So I'm going to be talking about something called an override here and there. And what I mean is that, let me get Reels UI, that you'll see like this little text input field where you can actually update something or force a value into this text input. And this is because I'm doing an override variable on a child component. And it's a pretty interesting and powerful thing. I'm just kind of getting into it, but I'm going to try and teach you a couple of ways that I'm using it in this tutorial. So let's jump back in. Let me close this up. I hope that helped, but I think when we start working on it, it'll be more clear. So let's just start adding interactions to this, okay? The first thing is we're going to add a tap trigger. And let me go to the final. It's so annoying. Okay, let's go to this. And remember, I'm going to like, I need, just because this is so large, I need to pull this stuff in and recreate it in front of you on this tutorial. So we need to tap the like, and we're going to talk about the like. We are talking about this little guy right here. So we're gonna make the functionality for this. So I'm going to do a tap, and I'm going to call it tap like button, just like this, tap like, you can even capitalize it, button. Okay, and I have some stuff there. I have a condition, and I have adding something to a variable, but I think what we want to do is, let me just do this first. We want to add opacity and a playback to this little Lottie animation. So the first thing is, when I tap like button, I want to make the opacity of that little animation. There it is. And by the way, I could always have typed in IC. I could have typed it in so I can find it faster. I want to jack that opacity up, and I'm using an animation that's at 0.1. Okay. So it's pretty fast. I'm going to go to my go to ease out. Okay, I'll click on there. And I'm going to call it opacity up. And I'll call it Lottie. And the next thing I want to do is a playback response. And the playback response is literally to play this thing. And then we're going to actually, to reset it, we're going to use the seek. But let's make it so this little Lottie actually starts playing. So we have to say playback. That's a response. So when I tap it, I'm going to animate the opacity up, and then the playback will be delayed 1, because I just want to have it just a hint of like delay, and then I'm going to just say play. So I'll say Lottie playback. Or you can actually Lottie playback to play. I'm going rogue, play animation. Okay. All right, folks. Let's test it. I tap on this. There, it works. Great. So, just taking a drink of water. I need to tell ProtoPie that a couple of things. I have to shut this thing off. If I tap it again, nothing happens. So I need to tell ProtoPie when this Lottie animation is, when the state is on, and then when it is off. And then I have to say a condition, which are these little guys, saying, if this thing is off, then do these instructions, which is turn the opacity up to 100 and play the animation. But we need to know when it's on and off. And we need to do something kind of interesting, which is make a variable so we can track this. Okay? We could actually do a couple of things. We could make a condition that says, if the opacity is at 0%, then do this. But I want to I want to put some interesting ideas in front of you of how you can do clever ways to track states. So I'm going to add a trigger, and I'm going to call it, I think I called it is on off, is like on. Okay. I want to keep everything accurate. Is like on. So I made a variable. This is just an empty container that you can just pass data around. It's like a shoebox or something. And so I'm going to leave it at 0. 0 in my mind means something is off. If something is on, if this is like a binary thing, then I'm going to use the number 1 to mean that it's on. Okay? So I am going to say, I'm going to add a condition, and I'm going to say, if the is, I'm going to target this empty container that has a 0. If it equals 0, then I'm going to run these instructions. And I'm going to call it, this condition, if like is on. Sorry, if like is 0. And I'm going to drag these underneath it. You could always also cut them and then select that and paste. And so what I'm saying right here is, if this variable has the number 0 in it, then do these two things. And right now it does, because the thing is off. When this happens, I also need to tell that variable that I am on. I'm the Lottie animation, and I am like completely visible. And I need to tell this variable that there needs to be a number 1 in it. So we're going to use something called an assign trigger. An assign response. So I select this guy, and I'm going to call it add 1 to variable. And I'm going to select a variable, and I'm going to just say 1. That's all it is. This little guy puts a number 1 into this variable. And so if I want to see what's going on, these things, it's a little debug thing where I just press on that little ladybug right here. And if I look in the previewer, I can see that when I tap on this, see that? I just put a number 1 in. But if I tap it again, I have no idea how that's working. Oh, I know how it's working. Goodness gracious. It's because I have this. I'm going to disable that. So let me disable this whole thing. It's working because I have the thing from the final file, so I can follow along my own stuff, my own instructions. Okay, so I'm going back to the previewer, and I'm tapping it. It puts on, but I need to tap it again to put the number 0 in it. So this is the beauty. I'm going to, and I'm trying to push this onto you, is do a lot of just copying and pasting to save you a lot of time, so you don't have to recreate all of these things. So it's copy, Command C, Command V. I need to say if like is 1, then I need to add the number 0. Change it here. And then I need to drop this to 0 and then pause. Oh, sorry. Am I seeking? I'm sorry. Playback. I'm actually resetting it. So I've just made it disappear, but I need to reset it. And I need to seek to the time, and I need to put a 0 in. I'm resetting it because Lottie reset animation. I need to say, it's just like the old tape recorders or something like that, or maybe a VHS. I'm sure all of you were much too young. But you have to rewind something to play it again. And that's what we need to do. So we need to tell ProtoPie to restart this thing, and then it can start again. All right, so what we did is if there is a 0 inside of this thing, we're going to run these 3 instructions. If there is a 1 inside of this thing, we're going to run these 3 instructions. And let's see if we succeeded. Okay, let me make this original. So I'm tapping it. I have a little error. Let's see what I did. If like is on. There we go. I screwed up and I forgot to change the value inside of the condition. That's why it wasn't working. This is how you troubleshoot. You just got to go through things. If like equals 1, I forgot to change this 0 to 1. Here we go. If like is 1, see, I animated it. It stopped animating it. It has a 1 in it. And now when I press it again, I have made this disappear. I have resetted it in the background. And then my assign response right here added a 0 right back into it. So here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. Awesome. Let's delete this. I don't need it anymore. All right, let's move on to the next thing, which is, okay. Now this one's, it's the same exact principle. All of this is just animation. All I'm saying here is I am animating something into view. And then these 3 things is me animating it out of view. So if we go back here, I'm going to go to this guy, this the main component in the final file. Let me go reset it to original size. I'm doing this thing where I'm like waiting and then it disappears. Sorry about the sirens. It'll go away. And what else I'm doing is I am also following where the finger is, which is a really interesting technique that I'm going to show you how to do. Okay. So the first thing is that we have to understand that we're receiving this from the parent. So we're going to have to fly a little blind on this. I'm going to shut this debug off. I'm going to collapse that. Okay, so receive double tap video. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a receive trigger. And again, this is from the final file, so I can duplicate it and then delete it. But I need to know all of the values. So from that video, from this guy, we're sending out a double tap receive. We're sending out a message. We're sending out a message that is shooting out from this main component that says double tap video, and we're sending it to a child component called Reels UI. So let me go back here. We're doing a little out of sequence, but I'm just trying to keep my components how I teach them to you in sequence rather than jumping back and forth. It can get a little confusing that way. Okay. So receive trigger, and I'm calling it receive, and I'm labeling it double tap video. And in the message, I'm literally putting in double tap video, and I'm going to enter it. Okay? Now, if like is at 0, run these animations. And I am talking about this little guy here. Now, if you notice, if I double tap on something, and there is no little like there, I want to add the little thing there, the little like. if it's not, if it is there and I double tap, if you look at Reels, you can just fire off this animation all the time you want. But
Coming in. I've got a lot.
But this is what we need to account for. So I know I'm stumbling around a little bit. Essentially, we want to pull off that little that interaction between this little guy and the big guy. So I'm saying if this like is at 0, then add the 1, just like we're doing here. Add the 1. You can even copy this. I'm saying below is my source. Okay, so I'm saying double tap. I'm adding, let me get rid of all this timeline stuff. I'm adding the one to the like is on. I am going to copy these. Okay. This is essentially this. I don't know why I'm... Okay, so we're literally just doing the exact animation. We're running it. And let's give it let's give it the same condition. I believe everything was the same. Okay, I can delete these. I hope you're following along. Basically, I could have just copied and pasted those 3 things. Okay. So, after we're done with these things, we're going to start animating the big guy, the big like button. So we're going to move big Lottie where to finger tap is. So we're going to use a move. We're going to move this wherever on the device. Large, yep, we got it. And we're going to use something called a formula. This is a formula that I use this, okay, this is a formula, Touch ID, that is basically out of the box. You can go on the documentation for, I'm quickly kind of looking it up. Let me bring it in. On their website, there's a bunch of these like out of the box like things that you get for free. They just automatically work with any prototype. One of them is Touch X, and it's Touch XY, Touch X, Touch X, and then Touch Y. So they're out of the box. So wherever you touch, something can move to that positioning. And I'm going to use that. I actually copied and pasted it, and all you have to do is put it into the X, Y areas of inputs of your prototype. So let's move this. I'm going to move. I want to say big, the big Lottie icon, and I want to put it to Touch X, and then I'm just touch, and then I'm saying Y. Let's do it again. Yep, Touch X and Touch Y. Okay, great. And I'm going to call it that insanely long name because it's very intentional what it does. Move big Lottie to where finger tap is. Next is we want to move the opacity up for the big Lottie, and then we want to scale up. Okay, so let's continue with this, and we're going to, looks like we're going to give the opacity, turn it up on the big Lottie, and we're going to scale it up, and then we're going to play the animation. So again, as I'm pointing out always, I am looking at what I did in the final file and just sort of recreating it so I can get all the values correct. So let's do the opacity up. Sorry, receive. And I called it opacity up, big Lottie, opacity up, big Lottie. That should be the name of a movie. Big, that's my nickname, Big Lottie. All right, Big Lottie. And we're going to select Lottie, big, turn it up. And is there any animation value that I put? I did put a start delay like I did with the little one, just ever so slightly. So, and I just want it to be immediate, just snap right into place. And scale up. I want a little bit of a duration here, and I'm snapping it. But the important thing is I'm scaling to an exact size, 92 pixels by 92 pixels. So let's add a scale up. We still have the big Lottie selected. I'm using the escape key, by the way, to get out of these drop downs. And I'm going to go to scale 2, 92 by 92. Seems like I have a 0.1 and then a 0.1. Scale up. And again, big Lottie. And then we have to do the playback. So we called it playback, big Lottie. So we are playing it, and we're going to start the animation with just a fraction of a delay. Again, 0.1. So playback, large Lottie, that is selected, and then a fraction, okay. So we did all of these. I'm just deleting them just to like get them out of the way. Now what's going to happen is we just animated all of this up. We assigned the variable. We signed the number 1 into the variable, and now we have to like have it disappear. So we want to wait a little bit. So I'm using, I did this before, and I did 1.8 felt like a good time to start animating back down. So I'm going to now take these 3, I'm going to copy them, and I'm going to change down, down, and then I'm going to call this reset. Okay, so now I'm going to do this. I think I gave it a little animation. Maybe I felt that was the right thing to do, 0.2, because it's in view already, and I didn't want it to be, I wanted to have a little bit of an animation ease. And 1.8, and then scale down. I believe it was 70 pixels by 72 pixels. 1.8. Okay, I'm just looking at the values. 1.8, 2, and it was at 70 pixels by 70 pixels. And then the playback reset, you'll notice that I have it at seek, time, and at 0. So seek, I set it to time, and 0, and 1.8. Actually, did I start delay? I think because it has to run all of these animations that it works with no delay. I have to run these animations and then it does a reset. So let me check with the final file on that. I'm going to Reels UI. Yeah, I don't have a start delay. I believe sometimes it has to run all of these, and then when it gets to 1.8, it can't do anything until these guys are done. Okay, so that is those. Okay, so what I just said is, I'm gonna just go over this so it makes sense to you in sentence format. When I receive this double tap from the parent, when I receive the double tap from the parent, which is again the video UI, the video component, when I receive this message, double tap video, if this like is at 0, this is a condition that says if like on the variable equals 0, then do these things. Now we're going to do if like equals 1, run all of these things. So here's what the thing is. If it is, if we're going to not do any more assigns, we're not going to assign off, because in the real public app, if this like is on and you double click on the animation, it always stays on. You have to physically shut this off by tapping on this little button. You can't do it any other way. And that's why, if you'll notice, I am not having anything where I am saying, this little animation should go to 0, and we should assign a 0 back into this variable. So all I'm doing is just reanimating this. So I'm going to select this. We're just animating the big guy. We're saying if like equals 1, get rid of these things. These are the little ones. We are simply, we are simply just running the large animation, the large Lottie's animation, and that's it. we are not doing these three things, which are the little animation. So I am removing this because that is from the final file. I do not need that. And we are good to go with these two. So I'm going to compress those. I'm going to go back into the final file and see what else I did. Okay, this is simple. So we have this button. We have this, again, I'm in the final file. We have comments. We have this component that I made that is supposed to receive a tap called open comment from a parent, and the parent will be Reels UI. So let's add another receive, and what did I call it? Tap comment, and then I'm going to send. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm not using receive. I am sorry. I am saying when I tap on this, send out a message, and I'm sending it to the current scene. Okay. I am going to the comment, so I'm selecting this, and I'm just going to bring this in so I don't have to keep on toggling back. So I'm saying tap, comment, you can even say button. And when I tap on that comment button, I want to send a message out, and I'm sending it to the current scene. And this is going to get interesting. I'm sending the message. It says open comment. The only reason that open comment is there is because I brought in this from the final scene. You'll have to type out open comment in all caps. The other interesting thing is I'm sending a value to a variable called ID, which I have not set up. So what we're going to do is add another variable, and we're going to call it ID. And this variable is going to be it's going to be set at, just leave it at default at 0. We're always going to give them a numbers between 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are going to represent the videos. But we're going to say make overridable. And remember that I showed you what it was before. This is how we get it to happen. We check off this box that says make overridable. That means that this kind of turns into the header, and then underneath it is an empty an input field where you can put text in it, you can put numbers, you can put color, hex values. So you have a little bit of playroom, and you should do a little bit of studying if you want to learn more about it. But we're going to use it to give identifications to each one of these Reels UI. So let's go back to send, and we're saying send open comment, and we're sending the value, and we're sending this to, you can use the plus sign ID. Okay. Let me get rid of this. Here it is, folks. Let me describe exactly what's happening. So I'm going to go back to the final, and I know this is a little tricky. I hate that it does that. Okay. We have a Reels UI in here, and we gave this an identification of 1. So just remember that that's going to happen. Now, this is set up that when I tap on this, it's going to send a comment, open comment, and it is going to say send value to ID. And what's happening is we, in the future, we will put the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 into this ID. So we're kind of setting it up for the future by doing the send value together. Right now there is no value, but in the future there will be a value. And it'll make sense when you start setting it up and you start like putting this together. I believe that you'll understand what you're doing. Okay, so we are done with Reels UI, and I just want to make sure I didn't forget anything. I'm going to go back. I swear to God, I'm going to lose my mind. Hearing those sounds over and over. So I'm going to put this on mute, my computer on mute. So when we're in Reels UI. That's it. There's only a few things that you can do here. It's double tap, and to get this guy going, to get, tap this to get the like Lottie animation, and then receiving a double tap to do the animation. And you'll see that come together in the future when we start putting together the video component. All right, so before we go on to the big video component, let's just complete the comments bottom sheet. And that looks like this. So essentially, let me open up this layers. I'm in the final document and we are using this, but you can always refer to the final document as well. So I have a container that is the size of, see, 393, 852. It is the size of the iPhone 14 Pro. What I am doing is when this receives, remember how we had on the Reels UI, we gave tap, comment, and we're going to send to the current scene, we're going to send a comment that says, a message that says open comment with an ID number. And this is where we get creative with conditions, and we'll do that much later, but it'll say, if comment ID equals number 1, then show the comments component number 1, and that'll have like the Toy Story comments in it. And if we tap on the Star Wars one, it'll say, if ID number says 2, then open up the comments components that's number 2. So we're going to get creative, and we're going to make all these instances of the component work to the specific video that it's being triggered from. Okay, it's hard to really say a lot of this stuff. So let's go back to the Reels final, which we are in. So again, what I am doing is I am basically sliding this thing up to 0, 0. And this little composer will then slide in above that. And so this is all negative area that will be see-through, and that's where we'll have that scrim showing. Remember, this is that'll be showing below the comments component. And we'll be able to touch this area or touch this sort of notch area as well to close. We have a hit area. It's just basically a shape that I made, and I'll show it to you when we get to it, but it has no fill, but it's 100%. So ProtoPie can still recognize it, but if you tap on this, it'll close the component, and we're also going to tell the scrim to close. I'm not getting into massive, here's how you make a bottom sheet where you can drag it, and if you don't drag it the full way, it re-pops up. I mean, we actually have a huge tutorial on that, and it gets really complicated compared to what I'm going to show. So I'm just going to do a tap to dismiss. All right, so with that being said, let's go back into the starter file. That was a little bit of a 3.5 minute introduction to this component. So let's make a new one, all right? And we're going to make this component container the size of the device, and that is 393 by 852. And we're going to call it components. Sorry, we're going to call it comments. And we're going to position it at 0, 0. That way we could just like work in it. And by the way, as always, I'm going to turn this to that shade of teal. Okay, I'm just pausing for a second while I wait for a siren outside to go. Okay. All right, so we're going to do something. We're going to check off make lower layers touchable. We don't, and this is interesting, we don't want to be able to touch on this component when the comments bottom sheet is up. We don't want to be able to like tap or scroll or something where we can actually touch the videos that are behind it. We want to just disable everything except the comments. So I did uncheck this, make lower layers touchable, and that is something that you should be aware of. And that's why we have the hit area in this component and not on the scrim, because we can't touch the scrim technically. Okay, so we did that, and we're going to make a new container with the dimensions. So with the dimensions 393 by 712, and we're going to call it main UI. So 393 by 712. And I'm going to position it down here. And just so you can kind of see, so this whole thing is a component, but this is really what we're seeing. And I'm probably, you know what, let's just leave it on white for now. So we can do it at 100%. Let's add those little corners at the top, and let's just make them 12%. So instead of doing everything universally, which would be 12, I don't want these corners to be round. So let's get rid of that and just make the top left and the top right. So that would mean I'll do that. So I have sharp 90-degree angles here and then rounded corners at the top. Okay, we're doing great. So let's make the notch at the top, and the notch is want to be inside the main dimensions. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm reading notes, so I just wanted to see what I was reading. By the way, this is called main UI. And now we're going to make another container in here, and we're going to have it be 393 by 16, and we're going to call it notch, and this will also be in the main UI, and you can have this at 100% as well, because comments are going to scroll underneath it, and we'll put this at 100. And main UI should have clip size. Oh, by the way, just for safety, because there are weird overrides, I'm just making everything make lower layers touchable. I'm unchecking it. And I'm making this clip layers because I want, if I didn't do that, then I couldn't see the corners when I put the notch on there. The notch is 100% white. So let's clip those corners. And now let's add that little notch that we all know. And I am looking for the dimensions. I think it's just easier to go into this. Comments, main UI, notch, IC notch. I dragged it in there. Okay. This notch is 60 pixels wide by 4 pixels high, and it is CF, CF, CF. Okay, going back to this, I think it's much easier if I do it this way. All right, so hit area, okay. Let's do this. Let's add the comments. Okay, so we're going to drag 2 images onto the canvas. And we're going to go to the assets folder. We're going to select image comment composer PNG, drag it on. It's already 393. That is great. Let's just put it down there. I want to kind of slide in over the top, so we'll leave it out of the main UI and right here underneath the root folder comments. And it looks like we make another container over the comments. Okay. So we have make another container. This is 393 by 696. Okay, so I have another container. Just for fun, I will show you what I'm doing. It is, I'll make it this red, and then I'll get rid of that. I'll get rid of that color in a minute, but we want this to go below notch. This scroll is a scroll container, so we're going to add scroll here, and we want it to be vertical, and let's just drag in the comments. So I am going to open up the comments folder, drag in, I'm going to do Star Wars. I love the Star Wars video that I got, some fan film. I have no idea how they made it. It's incredible. But these comments have to do with Star Wars, and so I'm going to use that as the component. So it is 393. Okay, great. All right, so let's drag this comment inside, and all I'm doing is positioning it to be flush at the top, and I think that if we preview it, it scrolls. Of course, we don't want to see red, so let's make this. You can either fill it with white or just get rid of the fill color. Okay. Wonderful. So let me see if I did this correctly compared to, okay. All right, so now the last thing we need to do is add a hit area, which is just a container that is 140 points high. It's 140 points high because that's how much space we have. So I'm going to do a rectangle. I'm going to drag it. I'm going to call it hit area. I'm going to do it the width of the device, 393 by 140. I'm going to position it. I'm going to get rid of the fill. We don't want that. And now we are positioning the entire container down to 100. Let's put 852. Or you can do it 853. Where do we put it? Looks like we did it at 852. Okay. And this guy is 4 pixels away from the comments. So we did this at 852, and the composer is 4 pixels away from the comments. Okay. We just set up the file. Let's start adding the interactions. So the first thing that we did on the final is we need to receive open comment, which is what we when we tap on this guy, we send off open comment. So let's go back to this, receive open comment. All right. I am going to then recreate it. So the first thing that we did is receive open comment. We are receiving this from a parent. I know that sounds weird, but this is how it works. It's both on the main scenes, but it is a subordinate because it's going to be an instance that we call out when we say open up comments 1 or open up comments 2. So it does become sort of a child in that sense. It does work with receive from parent, and so that's how we're going to do this. So receive open comment, receive from parent, and that's the message. Receive not from current scene, receive from parent, open comment. And as I said before a few times, the only reason I am seeing this in the dropdown is because I pasted in something from the other file, and it's bringing in the logic. You will not see that unless you do exactly what I'm doing. But if you're recreating from scratch, you'll have to have typed that in. So what we're going to do now is move the whole comments container, but also this composer is going to get a little bit of a different duration. So I think this is at 0.5 and this is at 0.4. Okay. So there's a little bit of a slide in. The composer just kind of slides in a little bit slower. It's just purely for aesthetics. So we want to move to 0. We want to do the whole container. This whole container is going to move up. We're going to put it at position 0, and we're doing it at 0.4. Move comments. You can even write the word container in it. And then we're going to do another move. We're going to do, this one is 766. If you need to find out stuff, you're going to have to just like move it around and find it. Like if I want to know where this comments is going to wind up, it will be, I would slide it in there and then see, oh, it's at 766, and that's my endpoint. So 766, and I want to do that at 0.5, and I'm going to call it move composer graphic. All right, I'm just going to do these ease out. Okay. Oh, 0.5 and 0.4. Okay, great. So this is receiving a message from the parent, and when that happens, this thing's going to come into view. Awesome. The next thing we're going to do is tap hit area to close the sheet. All right, so this is simple. We're just going to hit, when we tap on this hit area, we're going to run these instructions. All we're doing is sending a comment, a close comment, because we need to tell the scrim. The scrim is going to also be set up to receive a message to close, to go from it's at full opacity, and then we need to go to 0, so we need to set up something for that. And then we're resetting the composer, resetting the comments, and we have to reset the scroll, because if we start scrolling around and we don't reset it after it disappears, then the next time you bring it up, it's going to be exactly where it was before. So let's start putting this together. So following this, I am going to then add a new trigger, and I'm going to say tap, and I'm going to select in the target dropdown, I'm going to select hit area. I'm going to say tap hit area to close comments sheet. Okay. I'm going to ascend because I want to send to the current scene. That's where the scrim is. To this current scene, and I want to say close comment. Beautiful. Beautiful. Type in close comment. And the next is just, again, resetting. So let's do 3 resets. 1, 2, 3. Reset composer, graphic. The next one is reset comments component. And then reset scroll. I know it sounds like, hey, well, if you're doing resets to the component, why doesn't it work? Sometimes you just have to get a little bit granular. Sometimes reset just doesn't do everything. It'd be awesome, but it just doesn't. So you have to find out through testing, oh, it didn't reset the scroll. So I will do scroll. Okay. I'm not sure why there's an animation on that, but I do want to delay it. We're not seeing anything. There shouldn't be an animation on that. We want to delay it. What did I do it at? 0.4. So 0.5 is fine. So when it we want to reset it, not when you're seeing it. Okay. The next thing is reset the comments component itself. So let's just do that. And what do I have the animation at? 0.2. So it disappears pretty quickly. You can even do 0.3 if you want a little slower. But let's just do it at 0.2 and reset the composer. So again, the composer is this graphic. Awesome. And now there's one other thing, I believe. Yes. So this is awesome. What we're doing is we're adding, remember this notch here? We also want that to be a hit state as well. So let's say the user taps in around here but misses this area. We want to close the comment sheet. So I'm going to tap, I'm going to recreate this, tap notch to close comments sheet. I'm going to select the entire notch container, which is very narrow. We could, I guess we, let me, we could actually make this area bigger. You know, I could have, thinking about it now, right in real time, we could, there is this cool feature where you can, touch area. You can then make the touch area whatever you want. So if I touch here, I would actually be closing, I would be getting the touch interaction that I would if I touched it right here. So I guess I could have selected, made it 0, 0, maybe give it like 20, and then actually added a bunch of, I could have added 140 here. Huh. I'm not going to do that because I've already set this up and I don't want to do something that I haven't tested. But what I'll do is I'll give it 2020. So even if a user touched around here, it would actually be telling the notch that I've touched you. So it sounds really weird. All right, so all we're gonna do for this is, because we've set up the interaction send close comment, we're going to this trigger and then added this, and it'll work.